Let's spin it forward, because we know a couple of things. We know the executive committee is going to convene a meeting of the Board of Player Representatives as soon as possible. They'll need to appoint an interim executive director. There's nothing in the NFLPA Constitution that speaks to the process for doing it. It happened in 2008 when Gene Upshaw died after a short fight with pancreatic cancer. Richard Bertelson, who was the general counsel at the time, took over until D. Smith was hired. This time around, look, Don Davis's name has been mentioned for over a week now as a potential replacement. I don't know if he will or won't be. Tom DePasso is the general counsel. He's in the process of retiring. Is he the guy who takes over on an interim basis? I don't know. I think ideally you want someone in that job on an interim basis who has no designs on becoming the next executive director, because you don't want that person politicking when they should be focused on putting the fire out. Because there's a fire. There's damage that needs to be undone. And you just need to keep the doors open. You need to keep things moving, especially as training camps are starting to open. There's a lot that needs to be worried about if you are with the NFLPA right now. And the other issue, what are they going to do about a full-time executive director? Are they going to use that same flawed process that ultimately had two candidates make presentations to the Board of Player Representatives back in 2023, and it was all secretive, and nobody knew who the candidates were until the thing was done? Unacceptable. Unacceptable. We'll see if they do it again. And percolating and gurgling in all of this, what happens with JC Tretter? He was the president of the union when the last process was concocted and implemented that resulted in the hiring of Lloyd Howell. Then, when he was no longer the NFLPA president, a year later, Lloyd Howell turned around and hired JC Tretter into a previously non-existent position of chief strategy officer. They're tied together. Based on all the reporting that Pablo and I have done, they are tied together. And it is kind of curious, and I don't even begin to understand the reason for this. ESPN has done some great reporting that has contributed to the avalanche that blew Lloyd Howell out of the job. Not that anybody was trying to get him fired, but the reporting eventually gets to a critical mass where that's the only logical outcome. Don Van Natta Jr. and Kalen Kaler have done great work. But, and I checked this morning, they've had at least 4 significant articles over the past 9 or 10 days. Tretter's name isn't mentioned in a single one, not even in the article from yesterday about what the Board of Player Reps knew and didn't know about this 2011 lawsuit. I mean, Tretter was the one that orchestrated the whole process. He was the president at the time. To have his name never mentioned once in any of the 4 significant articles from ESPN, it just makes me wonder. It makes me wonder who's feeding them information, and are they deliberately trying to avoid casting any negative light on JC Tretter? See, this is the Game of Thrones aspect that I want to stay out of. But as a reporter, as somebody who is curious about the truth, curious about different developments, I don't know how you can have 4 major reports on the situation engulfing Lloyd Howell without mentioning JC Tretter's name a single time. I think they are a package deal. And I think it's very difficult to envision the guy that Tretter got hired, who then hired Tretter, is now gone. How is Tretter still in the job? And it's up to the union. It's up to the union. And the main thing I've been curious about over the past few weeks, are the players going to take control of their union? Or are they going to let others usurp the authority that the players should be exercising? And will the players fall victim to this, the media is the enemy of the people nonsense, and let's close ranks, and let's not talk to reporters, and let's treat anyone on the outside as an enemy, and let's only trust each other, which allows whoever is pulling the strings to continue to pull the strings? And it's obvious if you understand it, but when you're in the middle of it, it's kind of harder to detect, and you have to snap out of it. That's the question. Are the players on the verge of snapping out of whatever hold Howell and in turn Tretter had over them? And this gets back to the whole independent investigation that was being conducted, the breakaway subcommittee of the executive committee, and who was on it and who wasn't, and what are they really looking for, and where does that go? To the extent that there was a group that was seriously concerned about the activities of Lloyd Howell, logic would suggest that group would also be concerned about the activities of JC Tretter and the decisions made by the chief strategy officer, chiefly the strategy to bury and not get the most, not squeeze every amount of leverage out of the win, the partial win, plus the great evidence that was generated in the collusion ruling, which hid in a desk for 5 months until they had no choice but to acknowledge it and then appeal it. That's one of the key things moving forward. What happens with this appeal? What happens with the union? What happens with the executive director? What happens with the next CBA? And this is bad news for the NFL to the extent that the NFL had a preferred partner in negotiation, somebody they could get along with, somebody who said last year on the prospect of 18 regular season games, who doesn't want more football, me included? That guy's gone now. There's a chance. There's a chance. The guy who takes his place, or the gal who takes his place, is going to be somebody who stands up and says, no, NFL, you're not getting what you want. And the biggest challenge is going to be mobilizing the players to be willing to do what they haven't shown a willingness to do in years. And that is take a work stoppage, stand up and fight toe-to-toe with a group of owners who will shut the sport down for a season if they need to. And I'm not advocating for a season of no football, but I'm saying if the union is going to truly claim power and influence and strength on a semi-equal footing with ownership, they need somebody who can convince them, and good luck, but they need somebody who can convince them to take charge of their situation. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And we'll be covering every step of it. We're watching NFLPA Executive Committee. We're watching. And hey, we want the players to take control of their union. We want what's best for the players. I want what's best for the players. I want the players' union to be strong. It has to start with the players. Players have to want it. Because who's going to want that job when they see how weak the union is, how apathetic, not pathetic, apathetic, disinterested the players are? Players have to be engaged. Players have to give a crap. And so much of it is a product of the short careers. Nobody wants to miss games. Nobody wants to give up checks. I get it. It's a challenge. But you got to care, because the NFL and the owners, they will run right over you if they can, especially in the next CBA negotiations. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.